In a recent clip, a commentator claimed that DEI policies aren't discriminating against white people, instead arguing that white candidates simply aren't good enough to earn these roles. That's a claim that deserves serious pushback. In today's video, we break down why that argument is so problematic. Because saying an entire racial group is underperforming or less qualified isn't a neutral observation, it's a racial generalization. Judging people by race rather than individual merit is the very definition of racism, no matter who the target is. If the same statement were made about any other racial group, it would be instantly condemned, and rightly so. The real issue here isn't diversity or inclusion themselves, it's the idea that outcomes can be explained by racial ability instead of policies, hiring practices, or broader social factors. Once you start arguing that one race is failing because it's not good enough, you've abandoned fairness entirely. What makes this even more troubling is the double standard. When these claims target white people, they're often brushed off as honesty or social critique. But if the roles were reversed, the backlash would be immediate. A serious conversation about merit and opportunity requires evidence, nuance, and consistency, not sweeping racial judgments. So watch the clip carefully and ask yourself one simple question. Would this be acceptable if it were said about any other group? If the answer is no, then it shouldn't be acceptable here either.
It's a lot to do with connections and people that are getting in through those. There is other areas of, like, whether it's region, whether it's the fact that it's social-economic background. It's not anti-white, maybe anti-poor, anti-social economic, anti-education. There's other factors that come involved.
Do you think that there is a problem? Let's just say, for argument's sake, that there is an issue of white young men being underrepresented at these entry levels. Do you see that as a problem?
It is a problem because they just maybe don't have the ability and capability of it.
Do you see it as a problem for our society? Do you think that it's unfair if that is the case?
It is unfair, and I think two things can be true at the same time, where it should not be based on identity. It should be on capability
so you think
and ability.
It's
not about colorblind. It's really about going in and showing that you have the capabilities to do a job. When I am there interviewing,
I think the problem is that young white men aren't getting those opportunities.
How are you supposed why are you trying to say that it's to do with color?
Because there are literally job adverts that specify that people
maybe
have to
one
be,
or two in certain regions. I'm sorry, just like this article is being generalized. It is being generalized.
It is completely ludicrous.
One at a time, but I don't believe.
Fahima, I'm sorry, it's completely ludicrous and divorced from reality to say that this isn't based on race. There are adverts from some of our biggest institutions that block access to white men because they are white men. That is literally the definition of racism and sexism, and the fact that you can sit there and defend it is disgusting.
It's not defense. This is discrimination to actually put that across without showing evidence of the mechanism that's making that happen. Just one or two adverts does not mean that it's the whole area of UK doing that.
So your brain is addled by liberalism.
No, I go by academics and research as well, which shows that we are still in the minority of getting callbacks just because we don't have an English white name.
Okay, so
why are you not addressing that?
Okay,
and that is the real research, not one or two articles or one or two other things.
What matters here isn't who made the statement, it's what was actually said. Claiming that an entire racial group is failing because it's not good enough is not an evidence-based argument, it's a racial judgment. And no matter how it's framed, that kind of thinking is the very opposite of meritocracy. Meritocracy is about evaluating individuals based on their abilities, experience, and performance, not reducing people to their race and drawing sweeping conclusions from that. Once you start explaining outcomes through racial competence rather than policy decisions, hiring structures, or social conditions, you've crossed a line from analysis into prejudice. If the exact same claim were made about any other racial group, it would be condemned immediately, and rightly so. Yet when these arguments are directed at white people, they're often excused as social commentary or brushed off as uncomfortable truth-telling. That double standard is impossible to ignore, and it seriously undermines public trust. The issue here isn't whether diversity or inclusion should exist. The real issue is whether we're willing to apply the same moral and intellectual standards to everyone. Because the moment we decide that some groups can be judged collectively while others can't, we've abandoned fairness altogether. A serious conversation about hiring, opportunity, and representation requires evidence, nuance, and consistency, not sweeping racial generalizations. If we genuinely care about equality, then the principle has to apply across the board, not only when it's politically convenient. So the question is simple. Would this argument be acceptable if it were aimed at a different group? If the answer is no, then it shouldn't be acceptable here either.